everyone, it's Kim. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. So today I am bringing you another weekly topic, and this week's topic was rush less and enjoy more. So the premise of this week's topic was we're all so busy, we're all multitasking so much that we really don't slow down to enjoy things as much as we could. So some of the questions that I asked my classes this week was, do you ever feel like you have too much to do? And do you ever feel like you have too much of a conflict kind of between work and personal life? And I mean, for instance, your boss asked you to stay over, or you have a late meeting, but yet you were supposed to be at your kid's soccer practice. You know, kind of like that in general. I mean, it's kind of a struggle as to being where you need to be and being where you want to be. The next question I asked is, do you think that you have too many responsibilities? I mean, because sometimes you're just so busy and you're overloaded that it's very overwhelming. And then the last question I asked was, do you ever feel that your to-do list is so large that it's just, I don't know, kind of overwhelming? Sometimes there's so much on it, it just feels like it's paralyzing because you don't know how you're ever going to get everything done. So that's how I started off my class, because I really wanted them to kind of think about those situations, to kind of put themselves in those shoes, so that when we started talking about how to tackle our lists, that it would help us to, I don't know, really focus on exactly how busy we are. So kind of hope that makes sense. All right, so the first thing that I told them is, if your list is that overwhelming, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to stop and breathe. So breathe. I mean, take a minute, a full minute, breathe in and breathe out. Because if you're already feeling stressed over anything that you have to do, it's going to make it 10 times worse. So if you walk into it a little more calm, it's just going to make things a little easier. The next tip that I gave out was, don't go into it jumping in feet first with that gung-ho attitude. If you have, let's just, for instance, if you have your entire basement to clean, and you end up killing yourself for 2 days trying to figure out how you're going to get it all done. You're down there from daylight to dark, and you're exhausted when you get done. It's not something you're going to really enjoy, and you're going to be exhausted for days after because you just basically gave it your all. So what I want you to do is I want you to break it down into manageable tasks. And if you have a project that's that big, break it down into sections. Break it down into 15-minute increments if you need to. But don't get into the habit of just making yourself so exhausted that you're just going to be totally wore out. The next thing that I told them was to not become so caught up in the details that it was so overwhelming that you regretted taking on this task. So for example, keep the end in mind. So if you are throwing a party, and your party, you have so many things to do. You've got to go to 3 different stores. You've got to pick up a cake from the bakery. And your list is just overwhelming. I've got to clean. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I mean, you can really get caught up in the details so much that where you can't even enjoy yourself. You can't even think about it. So instead of getting caught up in the details to that level, what I want you to do is I want you to think about the end. Think about the party itself. Think about who the party's for. Think about how happy everyone is going to be. Think about the people that are going to be there that you probably haven't seen in a while. So have the end in mind, and if you can see the end, you're going to totally just kind of go through the motions and get everything done, and it's not going to be so overwhelming. The next tip that I gave, okay, I'm going to have to look at my list because that's all I had off the top of my head. Hold on. So the next tip that I gave was to, it's on my other sheet, hold on, I'm looking. All right, one more sheet. Okay, so be realistic was the next one. And, Rome wasn't built in a day. It took a little while. It's just like You're not going to learn Spanish, the full language of Spanish, in a week. It takes time. So be realistic with your goals. If it's something that's going to take a little while, go with it. It's fine. You don't have to do things overnight. So just be realistic. Don't be so hard on yourself, because a lot of the times when I give myself an unrealistic goal, I'm angry with myself when I don't get it done, even though there was no way I could have possibly done it. And the last tip was to take note and capture everything you've done. So if you don't have a list that you're working off of, sit down with a pad of paper and write down everything that you did that day, because there's nothing more satisfying than seeing everything that you've accomplished. And also, if you do take a do a list, this feels pretty good, and this, crossing things off, totally satisfying. So that could be your end of the day, ritual as well. All right, so let's see what else I have here. I know I have one other thing that I wanted to tell you. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet today. As you can tell, I've got the air fryer going. I am cooking something in there right now, so stay tuned for that. And let's see. All right, so the last thing that I wanted to tell you is to make sure that you take time for yourself. If you're taking time for yourself and taking the time to do things that you enjoy, it's going to make you feel better. And if you feel better, you're going to get healthier. You're going to want to make better choices. So take the time to invest in yourself. Pick something, pick one thing a week that you really like to do. And if you're already doing that, kudos. If you're doing that already, let me know in the comments what you're doing for yourself each and every week. If you have a ritual, a date night, or you've got an exercise group, whatever that may be, put it down in the comments. And heck, we can all use some really good ideas too. And then, oops, that's my timer. So hold that thought, I'll be right back. Okay, so the last couple of things is, if your list is super overwhelming, and just to bring it back to the list idea that we started off with, if your list is super overwhelming, see if there's anything that you can delegate on there. If it is full of, if you're looking at your calendar and it's full of social engagements, just remember, before you accept the next one, it's okay to say no. Let's do it another time, or let's reschedule. It's okay. People are not going to get angry with you, and you're not going to feel so overwhelmed to keep up with every single activity that's going on. So let me look at my list and make sure that's all I had here. And I think it is. So take the time that you have, and don't let yourself get too stressed about any situation or any type of activity, goal, or list that you need to tackle. So with that said, I'm going to jump off from here, and I wish you all a happy, great week, and we'll talk to you next week with the next week's topic.